Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock, and we've always been here.
Always.
It's not my fault. You all missed a month's worth of shows.
I like in my head, I was going to try to come back almost like that droopy dog, like, welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. We're still here.
Yeah. Is anybody here with us?
I'm just kind of like living in that headspace. So I talked on Blue Sky about like, I've just watched like 5 Paul, is it Giamatti? I think I say it wrong.
Giamatti?
Paul Giamatti, yeah. Just like 5 different movies where he's the leading man, and he's fantastic, and the movies were all really good, but he plays the same fucking, like, fucker in every movie. He's just like a miserable... You always hear about, like, oh, the guy is, like, the lovable loser. It's like, yeah, but he's not really lovable. He's just kind of the loser.
So,
like,
I'm going to probably, if anybody cared what I thought, I would probably lose some fans over this. I don't think he's amazing. Kind of what you said. Like, I think when he's right in that wheelhouse of playing, like, a...
just a loser, like
just
sad,
sort of like
a
muted, like Larry David character, almost. Yeah. Which I'm not knocking. Like, that's an entertaining character, but like his big thing, most recent big thing, was Billions, and Billions is one of the worst fucking acted shows I've ever seen.
Yeah, like, see, I haven't, because he's in Empire too, I think. Unless I read that wrong, but maybe it was just Billions. But I haven't seen the shows. But his most recent, like, notable thing was that The Holdovers, and it was pretty good. But I mean, it's very predictable.
That actually looked kind of good. Like,
it's almost like Wes Anderson-y, but it's not Wes Anderson. So,
like, he has a delivery, and it's like, it's him and the other main character in Billions, and that dude was in Band of Brothers, and he's like, you know, done Shakespearean actor. Like, there's talent on both sides, but they're both so fucking bad together where they're like arguing with each other because one's a Wall Street criminal and the other guy's like trying to arrest him or get him proven guilty for a bunch of insider trading shit. And Paul Giamatti's delivery is like, because you're a criminal, Bob. Yeah, and it's like, what the fuck? Why do people
so maybe
like
I guess I could rephrase that and say, like, he's good at a thing.
Yeah, he is, and that's fine. All actors do. Yeah, you know, they all have their...
And like I said, the 4 movies I've watched in the last week, he's all played the same character, so he has not left that wheelhouse in any of them.
It's you know, some people have more range than others. It's like it's a batter's box, you know. Some batters can hit anywhere in the zone. Some you got to get them. They need that one pitch, you know, kind of right inside, you know, middle.
The 88 mile an hour fastball. That's a little, like,
you know, and
high and in the middle.
To me, I need it to be about 50 hours and underhanded, you know. Mm-hmm. So don't take it personally if I give you a little shit.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun to have like a professional, like, production, like Hollywood level production? And me and you have to try to fucking deliver lines. Like,
I think I would be okay.
I would not. I am so fucking bad at, like, pretending to be anything other than me. Like, if they wrote the role specifically, like, you're just Steve, maybe I could hit it.
I like acting because I feel like I'm doing it. I feel like I'm doing it now.
Every day. Yeah. I like the idea of acting. Like, I would like the idea of being an actor, but it is not a skill that I
have. Yeah. I mean, it has to be a passion for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's that thing, I do complain about this with art, because I doodle a little bit. I'm an okay artist. I'm not going to make a living out of it, but... you know, people are like, oh, yeah, you can, you know, you were born, you can draw. It's like, I've drawn a whole fucking lot. Like, and so I guess there's that too, when I say I can't act. I've also never acted, so I don't want to pretend like somebody, as much as I think the guy's a weirdo, Matthew McConaughey's got a ton of range. I don't think he was just born and could do it, though. Like,
I mean, he's another one where it's like, you know, he kind of surprised me with, like, True Detective and stuff, but... He's also a guy who's like, he will branch out, but he has his wheelhouse, and he likes, he'll do one interesting thing and then 2 or 3 years of, I'm going to pop my shirt off, type shit, it's like, that's a skill too.
That's also a skill I don't have. I pop my shirt off and people scream and call the cops.
I can't, it doesn't really pop off. I have to peel it off. I have to kind of fight it.
Good 30 to 45 second period where you're like trapped and you feel like you'll never get out of the shirt.
This is the third time he's called the ambulance with his shirt half off. So yeah, welcome to our show. We took May off. That wasn't really planned. But that kind
was helpful.
That kind of falls on me. At the end of April, I got supremely sick. Like the worst stomach bug I probably have ever had. And I am not joking. I did not stop shitting for 5 days.
I was going to say like diphtheria, but my brain almost said gonorrhea, which are two completely different.
Yeah. And we've talked about being sick on this show before and how I used to it felt like I used to be able to bounce back after 2 days or so. And now like you hit 30 and it's like, now your body's just like, I need more time. So that kind of happened, and then it was like a kind of a longer recovery than I thought about, and then I thought it would be. And then it was just sort of like all of that and then some burnout, and it was just kind of like I said, it came down to me just sort of being like, hey, can we get back to this in June?
And maybe it's like me interpreting you because we've done the show so long, but the way you always said it was like you felt really bad, and it's like every fucking time that you're like, can we not do the show tonight when we were supposed to, was a night that like my house was like half on fire. And it's like, oh darn, like, yeah, we can definitely skip this week. So I did not have the monumental illness on this side, but yeah, it was a very good month to take off. And
so, hopefully that didn't bum too many people out. In fact, I'm sure it didn't.
No, I imagine there's probably more celebrations than
it was. It actually was good because it made like my like tweets and stuff about like, we're coming back. Like people are like, oh, cool. Like they didn't know we went anywhere. So,
yeah. They're like, what's coming back? Do you do a show?
Oh,
like, yes,
shit. Oh, shit. I thought you guys
for like
died.
15 fucking years.
Yeah. So maybe that's the play. Maybe the best PR we could do for ourselves is not do the show in stretches.
Well, and we should take it one step further and do that like Huck Finn thing where we stage our own deaths. Mm-hmm. Because artists only ever get, attention after they die. But we'll really be up in the rafters watching.
Yeah, you wouldn't really have to do much to stage it. It's just a tweet like, this is Steve's wife, and he left me with debt.
Yeah. People will be like, it tracks.
Yeah, that sounds like him.
He was kind of a dick. I'm not going to contribute to any GoFundMes or anything, but our condolences. That's the kind of tweets I imagine would come back.
Yeah. It was, prayers up, big dog. But yeah, it was all that was to get out of having to get a story together. But I do have a story together, and I have a real one.
Yeah, it looks like it includes like intrigue and birth and death and explosion and like tits and ass and other stuff. The tits and ass is me.
The things I'm known for.
Yeah. So I'm ready. I'm excited.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard the show, every time we feel like doing a show, we tell each other stories, and they can be about anything, as long as we find them interesting at the time. So, Captain Sir George Hubert Wilkins was born in Mount Bryan East.
Wait. Was he born a captain? Like, did he just...
No, he died a captain. So, once you get that title, you don't get it taken off just because we're going back to the beginning. I would have my son knighted as soon as he was born, though.
you just name him like Sir John, and they're like,
yeah, Sir Elton John Matlock.
Yeah.
So he was born in Mount Bryan, East South Australia in 1888. As a teenager, Wilkins found work with a traveling cinema as a cinematographer. So, it's pretty impressive, like kind of early 1900s filmmaker.
Yeah, film. Yeah, now I'm kind of confused though. Like traveling cinema, but then he's a film. Like, are they making movies or showing movies or both?
Both, because kind of think like Old West, like think Red Dead Redemption 2, which is my frame of reference for everything. How there's like, the tents and stuff, like come see a show,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
Those were moving operations.
Yeah, because there wasn't that makes sense. There wasn't like nationally released movies.
Yeah, you didn't like make copies, like multiple copies, and ship around the country necessarily. It was like, you took your movie.
So this is a pretty like fucking kick-ass job for the time, even for now.
Teen,
like,
yeah,
it wouldn't. Yeah,
as far as like shit you could do as a teenager in those days, like there's a lot worse. His travels brought him to England, where he became a pioneering aerial photographer for a film company. So, he would get shots from like balloons and shit. I guess that's what that means.
Now, at the time, see, this 1800, well, I guess 15, early 19, aerial photography just meant climbing a ladder.
Yeah, you have to go to the tallest mountain to get this one shot of us on ground level. His photographic skill and adventurous mindset earned him a place on various Arctic expeditions after a certain point, including one that went down in 1913 that was supposedly very fucked up, but it's not the one we're going to talk about today. In 1917, Wilkins returned to Australia to join his nation's flying corps as a second lieutenant in World War I. A second lieutenant means that the men would cry, "You're not my real lieutenant," and run away crying.
You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah. That would piss me off if they took it that way. Like, you bust your ass for a rank, and they're like, you're just a second lieutenant, like a substitute t-shirt.
But imagine that probably in some way, well, I don't know. Say probably in some way it was like, probably not, because military organizations
tend to take rank. Yeah,
they take it pretty fucking seriously. But I love that.
I
do like
shit
that
while you're away.
Yeah, definitely.
A year later, he was appointed the official war photographer, which sounds like a cakewalk of a job if you have to be in a war. But he actually busted his ass a lot in that role. In 1918, he would receive a military cross for his efforts to rescue wounded soldiers during the Third Battle of a fucking thing I can't pronounce. It's Ypres, Ypres. Erps?
Yeah.
Ypres.
Berserkers.
Yes, praise.
And also, now I'm picturing, because he's a photographer for the war, but he's saving people, which is, yeah, good for him, like, applause. But I'm picturing, like, it from today's frame of reference, where all these, like, people do douchey things for Instagram or whatever, and they're holding their phone up in, like, selfie mode, except for he's holding up a, like, 380 pounds 1900s camera with one hand pointing at himself like, all right, guys, we're going in. We're going to save this guy.
Yeah. I would love if he was, like, carrying all that fucking equipment, but also
just
trying
one
to,
hand,
like,
yeah, like one-handed
drag
pointing
people
at him.
back to
he's like,
put the fucking
like
camera down and get me to the trench. I am bleeding
narrating
out.
the whole fucking thing. Oh, this guy's definitely not going to make it. What did she say? Oh, nothing.
I'll fucking make it if you put the shit down.
I'm not a medic, buddy. I'm a photographer. What do you want?
I want you to help me, Lieutenant. No. So to this day, he's the only Australian official photographer to receive a combat medal in war. And he was promoted to a captain shortly after that.
Kind of hoping. I know I keep interrupting on this story, but
it's not that long, so
good.
Pat it out.
I was kind of hoping you were going to say he's the only Australian war photographer. Like they did it once, they're like, nope.
He's the only to this day. He's the only Australian who ever went to war. Amazing, right? His war duties frequently threw him into the shit, as I'm sure he would put it. It's actually really funny because there's audio of him talking later in life, and he's very proper speaking and stuff. So I was just laughing at the idea of him being like, I'm in the shit.
Yeah. And man, if I could do an Australian accent, I cannot. But...
Blimey, I'm in the shit. He would display heroics during battles and receive military awards and praise from his military peers up until the war was over. After that, Wilkins worked as an ornithologist, which is the study of birds, as opposed to a hornitologist, which is the study of anything. I was proud of
scientist, yeah, a scientist that just anytime any two organisms are having sex, he just pops up yes, excellent.
Anything
yes.
I can crank one out to is actually research. He continued with that.
That's interesting. He's I'm tired of photographing war. How about birds?
Yeah, well, birds are cool. During this time, he continued with expeditions, and a lot of his work and research on birds was often praised by the British Museum. However, the Australian government shit on a lot of it because it showed a sympathetic treatment toward the indigenous Australians, and also carried a lot of critique about the environmental damage of society, which nobody wanted to hear then, nobody wants to hear now, even though it's true.
I love, though, the idea of him being these indigenous peoples are really great and we should probably respect that. And of all people, the British are yeah! It's wait.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a British museum. They planted their museums everywhere. And,
well, yeah, but I'm just saying, for the British to be yeah, this guy's great. He says that indigenous people are great.
He's saying, he's saying they would be for it because it's he's saying the Australians fucked up. We love that. Not us.
Yeah, but the Australians are British, though. That was kind of the timeline.
But not that was where they sent, criminals and shit. They still looked at it that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah, so they're
not proper, not proper British.
So they're yeah, these criminals that we put over there are fucking this up.
Yeah, but we didn't fuck it up. We were having tea.
I think I got it straight in my head here.
In 1927, Wilkins would join Carl Ben Eielson. Why are the fucking Australian and shit names fucking with me?
Right, yeah. I was going to say, we took a month off and you became me with these names. Carl
Ben Joe Bob. He joined him to explore the drift ice north of Alaska and conduct the first land plane descent onto drift ice. The following year, they flew over the Arctic and Antarctica in 2 separate trips. This led to more awards, more adventure, and a really bad idea brewing in Wilkins' head.
Fantastic.
So, he's kind of transitioned now away from, bird research to full-on exploring the unknown. And back then it was, the polar regions. But he was on vacation with his wife and a wealthy friend of his, a Lincoln Ellsworth, where he and Ellsworth began working on a trans-Arctic expedition involving a submarine.
Oh, this is Gonna be good. Early 1900s Arctic submarine.
Mm-hmm.
Check.
Up to this point, any expedition by boat was pretty much a death sentence. Yeah, and ships certainly tried it. There's plenty of expeditions you can look up of people getting their ships lodged in the ice and pretty much being fucked unless somebody came to rescue you.
We've talked about like how you tend to like read a lot of serial killer stuff and pirate stuff and Old West stuff. Arctic expeditions and subarctic expeditions gone wrong. It kind of fall in. I don't want to say my wheelhouse. That makes me sound like an expert.
It's definitely up your alley, for sure.
Yeah. I've read about a lot of expeditions that have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And being as fucked up as both of us are, the more you read about them, you're like, I should try one of those.
Yeah. Well, this one I watched, I just got a random YouTube video recommending it. And the YouTube video was really well presented and stuff, and it was really fascinating. And then I was like, that would probably be a really funny thing to bring to the show. Because the video I watched was a very, historical, this is what happened description of it. I can add my stupid fucking hornitologist joke and make a killing.
Right, it was worth it just for that.
Yeah. The hornitologist t-shirt. Be sure to write that down.
Yeah, see, now every time, because I watch a lot of nature documentaries too, and every time it cuts to like two animals like going at it, I'm going to picture you popping up in like a white lab coat, like taking notes, like, hornitologist.
I mean, you can find me in the comments section of your favorite pornography, doing research, asking people how they feel about what they're watching. So yeah, if your boat like lodged in the ice, you were fucked. Flying over the Arctic was now proven doable, thanks to Wilkins and Carl Ben and Jimmy Joe. But you could only get so much information about it from the sky, it's a bunch of ice. But a submarine expedition could be the means to conduct what Wilkins called a comprehensive meteorology study and to collect data of academic and economic interest, which I could see his point if we didn't already know it was a bunch of ice.
Yeah, that's, even to this day, there's like, that's like the big thing that they do in the Arctic. It's like a meteorological study. It's like, it's cold.
People way smarter than us can learn a lot about it, but to me, it's like, why the fuck would you ever be that cold to like point out the obvious?
Yeah, because the weather is everywhere. You think like, it's like, Steve, study the weather. I'm like, I'm going to the Bahamas. I'll be back. Or not. Like,
the weather is everywhere is a good album title.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a clarinet solo.
Hey, clarinets can whip out a banger. Shut up. Yeah, they can. It's my favorite tune. So welcome.
The episode that I find out that you spent your life like learning to play clarinet.
I'm sure there's a collab song that we've written that used a clarinet at some point. Like, I would be surprised we used every other fucking woodwind instrument out there. Wilkins also felt with more knowledge, Arctic weather stations could be developed, which could be used to predict the weather. He also believed a submarine could take a fully equipped laboratory into the Arctic. Please remember that as we proceed with this story. His partner Ellsworth contributed $70,000 and a $20,000 loan to Wilkins. So $70,000 from him, and then you pay me back.
So basically, he's like, "Here's $90,000, but I want 20 of it back."
Yeah,
Buster.
Wilkins was also partnered with newspaper tycoon William Randolph Hearst on some previous expeditions, and he purchased exclusive rights to the story for $61K. Wilkins put up $25K of his own money, and the Woods Hole Oceanographic fuck me Institute put up 35,000. Since Wilkins wasn't American, he had to lease the sub from the American government. He couldn't just buy it. And he ended up with a disarmed 012 model sub, which Wilkins renamed the Nautilus after Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, a book where nothing bad happened.
I was going to say, that's like... It's been a while. I like that book. I used to be like one of my favorites, just the idea of it, but it's been a while. Mm-hmm. And the sub itself, I don't think it ends well.
Well, I wrote that joke down, and then I had to like go to the wiki for it to remind myself, like, bad things happened in that book, right? Because I haven't read it in forever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah. Definitely not what you want to name something that's going to have a group of men trapped on it.
That's like me buying a yacht, maybe a yacht or whatever, and be like, I'm going to cruise the world in this. I'm naming it the Titanic. It's like, that's just probably not a great idea.
Yeah. So Wilkins wrote a book about this expedition before he went on the expedition, which is probably a little weird to me. And he even addresses it, that it is a weird thing to do on the first page. But I kind of respect it, because he's like, the point of this is if we fuck up, I want people to know how, so they can do better.
Yeah, true.
That being said, he should have known when he was fucking up.
Yeah, so he started writing one of those creepypastas we always do, where it's like,
yeah, it's coming for me. Here's what happened. You know?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, the fuck-ups happened right away. The plan for this journey was that the submarine was to go from New York across the ocean to England, where it would refuel and, you know, any minor repairs that might be needed. And then it would head up to Norway, and then from there it would begin its trans-Arctic journey to cut through the entire North Pole. Before they even left New York, their quartermaster got knocked overboard and drowned.
Good sign.
Mm-hmm.
You know, seafaring people don't believe in a lot of omens, but that might be one.
Yeah. So, to make the Nautilus work as an under-ice submarine, they had to do some modifications to it. And some of these are kind of interesting ideas. Kind of the first initial one that was kind of creative to me was they put a giant, what's essentially an ice skate blade at the top of it. So it like cuts into any of the ice that's in above it, so it doesn't like just get wedged.
Yeah.
You know, and it could kind of glide along. They also put a hydraulic pull into that system so that it could like push up, and that would press the submarine back down to give it clearance, which is kind of a nifty idea if it actually works.
Yeah, these all sound like ideas that like you would just jot down on a bar napkin.
Mm-hmm. The torpedo chamber was converted into a moon pool that could be used to lower scientific instruments into to measure cold water, I guess. I don't know what they're fucking doing there, what they're trying to prove. But they're the scientists. They also installed drills that were supposedly capable of cutting through 13 feet of ice above them to give the sub access to fresh air, which, you know, everybody knew it would need. The so-called fully equipped laboratory only offered a single toilet that was wide out in the open in front of everybody. So
it's like every nightmare I've ever had about having to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, there's no fucking room for anything, really. You had to shit in front of people. And if that shit broke, it got gross for everyone. They all got in on it.
So the first rule was no Taco Bell on this expedition. Right?
Yeah. But or like, you know, when we can come up for air, shit outside. All of these functions were not tested fully. I don't know if the drills ever had a successful test. And Wilkins even expressed that this shit was not ready to go. But all of his partners were kind of like, well, you're going anyway. Cause
yeah, we spent a whole bunch of money on this.
We paid for it, and we're at least going to get a show out of it. Halfway through the trip to England from New York, contact with the Nautilus ceased. The end. Actually, both their engines died during a storm. The Nautilus was later found by a passing ship and just sort of bobbing in the fucking ocean. And then it was dragged to southern Ireland to recharge its batteries and then towed to England to be repaired.
That's a good sign because there's no storms in the Arctic. So
yeah, you're like, you as daunting as the ocean can be, especially in a storm, that is probably the tamest conditions you're going to deal with in this whole trip.
Yeah, like in fairness, what I know about the Atlantic can be a fucking nightmare. The Arctic, yeah, I mean, it's not a step down. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. It then began to head to Norway, and another storm hit, which took off the Nautilus's bridge. But it did reach its point to pick up the scientist portion of the crew in Norway. But
who stupidly got on a ship who lost its bridge.
Yeah, you have to imagine like the crew at that point was like telling the scientists like, you don't want to get on here, dude.
Literally part of our ship fell off on the way to get
this
you.
Is bad fucking news.
It was the language barrier. They're like,
this motherfucker is telling us we have to keep going while he just takes photos of birds. Since they were already behind schedule, Wilkins only allowed a single day for repairs. So uncharted territory, harsh conditions, fuck it, we're in a rush. We got to count all that ice. Go. I don't know what the hurry is. So put yourself in the position of the crew at this point, like the ones who have been there since New York. The sub is falling to pieces. This lunatic wants to take you under the ice, so you can't even come up for air. And for all the interesting modifications the Nautilus had received, what do you think was missing? Heat? Insulation, maybe?
No, you don't need that.
Yeah, a Jedi might not care for all this shit, but a crew stuck in the Arctic fucking does. So all their fresh water system had frozen and leaks were beginning to spring, and they were freezing to death, As they pushed toward the north,
I love that they continue to go. Like, maybe it'll get better as we go into colder water.
Yeah. So as they pushed toward the north, they conducted some planned experiments along the way. And they reached 82 degrees north, which was the furthest any sea vessel had gone on its own power up to that point. And so it was now time to dive. Why aren't we diving? Maybe because they didn't have stern planes.
Yeah.
If you don't know what stern planes are, those are the little flaps at the back of a submarine that help it descend. Wilkins believed the crew was just sick of his shit and intentionally sabotaged the vessel and removed the stern planes. The crew would say the planes probably fell off during any of the parts of this trip that the sub was not cut out to do.
I like the idea that you went outside in these conditions and just took them
wrenched it off.
Yeah.
Instead of saying I don't want to go, I'm gonna get a ride from.
Yeah, that's the other
Norway.
thing. It's like they just don't want to do this. So there's more of them than you. If they don't want to do it, they're turning around.
Yeah. Ordered to continue by Wilkins, the captain of the sub, a Sloan Dannenhauer, did a pretty impressive maneuver to get the vessel to submerge without the stern planes.
He opened all the hatches.
No, he just fucking rammed it into a chunk of ice at a bit of an angle.
Yeah.
And
you got the skate, right?
Yeah, and like that, the Nautilus became the first submarine to operate below the ice cap. Unfortunately, you might be surprised, this also broke a ton of shit on the sub, and radio contact was lost for days. Rescue efforts were put into place, but then it was learned the Nautilus really didn't get that far from where it tried to descend, and had to resurface in a Polinia.
I was expecting its like acid to still be up in the air.
Polinia is an open area of water that's surrounded by ice. So they had to resurface there and repair the radios. The crew was able to take core samples and test water salinity and the gravity near the North Pole.
Can you imagine still doing that stuff like after this stuff?
I mean, you're there for days. It's probably...
That's true.
We need to do something. But they really couldn't do any of the underwater shit that Wilkins was excited for, that the whole trip was built on. Now that it was actually a hopeless effort, William Randolph Hearst very publicly pleaded for his friend to abandon the expedition. He wrote, "I most urgently beg of you to return promptly to safety and to defer any further adventure until another and more favorable time and with a better boat," which he bought, the cheap asshole.
Well, this fucker's leased too.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and this was public.
What he's probably really urging is like, I need my deposit back.
Yeah. So it's not like confirmed, but it's pretty much accepted that privately Hearst was like, "You're fucking doing this," which was part of the pressure of why Wilkins needed to keep going. And then when it was really fucked, that's when Hearst was like, "Please, my friend, come home."
Yeah, because you don't want to.
You're a
Like
madman.
you can be an asshole, you just don't want to look like an asshole.
And Wilkins, like, he probably didn't give a shit at this point, but he was like, "If I come back, I am ruined." But
no more hornyologist jobs for me.
I'll be in fucking Hollywood as a hornyologist filming dirty shit. But Wilkins at this point had to agree it was too risky to attempt to continue. The sub was fucked beyond belief. Because a fuck ton of Norwegian planes and ships had been sent en route to rescue these fuckers and now had to turn back, it was suggested by the people of Norway that any of these polar expeditions going forward should have enough funding to pay for their own rescue operations beforehand.
Yeah, that would probably, yeah.
Which I think is fair. It's like, if you're willing to die for it, you better be willing to put up money for me to try to come get your ass.
You know what? So I have a friend who had a coworker who kind of went through one of these like midlife crisis. I think he went through a divorce or something. I got the story like secondhand. Although it's one of my good friends, like good friends. So at one point he decided to go. He took up hiking, like mountain climbing, hiking, and he was actually out there. I think Mount Olympus, out like by you or your way, one of those mountains out there, solo hiking. And he fell off a fucking cliff and landed on a ledge and was there for days and had, like, finally his GPS, like, his satellite GPS picked up and they found him. And, like, Coast Guard had to rescue him. And I want to say he's got, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of, like, costs for the rescue. So, like, the same should probably apply to private submarine expeditions to the Arctic.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, yeah, you want to be an explorer? That's great. We need explorers. The world needs people to do that.
Then again, it's also like, if you're in a position where it's like, this guy got lost and I can save him, are you going to be like, well, he didn't pay? Well,
that's why you save him first and charge him later.
And this is for inconveniencing me? Get well soon.
And I don't know this story that I'm saying that's my friend's friends, and again, it's not as like offhand as like, oh, my friend's friend's roommate's ex-cousin's, he's a firefighter and it's a coworker of his, and those guys are very close.
Yeah.
So it's something that definitely did happen. I don't know for sure. Like, I thought this was years ago. I think he said that he was being billed for the rescue efforts. Maybe, maybe not. But I know various states that have attractions like that where you've got mountains that people regularly go climb have started instituting that, because that's kind of the idea. It's like, look, there's a lot of funding that goes in place to like do these trips, but also like the taxpayers probably shouldn't have to foot the bill when you fuck up.
Yeah.
But on an individual level, like something like that, hiking, that could be debated. On a larger scale, going to the fucking Arctic in a submarine, like, yeah, like, I get the frustration of being like, well, now we're spending millions of national dollars to try to save you assholes.
Yeah. On the way back to Norway, another storm hit, and this put the Nautilus out of commission for good. Safely pulled to Spitsbergen, Wilkins received permission from the U.S. Navy to sink the Nautilus on November 20th, 1931.
That's gotta be awkward. Like,
which is kind of funny. Like, we're like, hey, we're gonna just sink our bullshit in your waters. Hope you don't mind.
You know that boat we rented from you guys?
You know that
we should probably just sink it.
You mind if we leave it here in Norway? You know?
But that's how our oceans are treated too. It's like, yeah, totally. It's a big ocean. Just fucking dump it.
Yeah. Despite coming back with invaluable data and, you know, all the crew except the quartermaster at the beginning.
Yeah, the one guy that died before any of this started.
Like, doesn't count until we actually leave New York, guys.
You might have said it. Is the quartermaster's last name Gibson? Because that very much seems like a family legacy.
I didn't get his name. It just said their quartermaster, I think.
We're going to have to hit Ancestry.com when we're done here.
So, Hearst, he called it a failure and refused to pay for it, which kind of put Wilkins in financial ruin. The expedition did achieve its stated objective in the book, though. It did help pave the way for future successful submarine Arctic missions.
And weather stations. And like I said, to this day, that is kind of the spot for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it's kind of like anything else. Like, you tend to talk about these stories more than I do, but often a common pattern is people rushing into shit before they're ready to go, you know? And that's sort of the story of this mission. Wilkins died in 1958. When he did, the U.S. Navy actually took his ashes aboard the USS Skate the following year and scattered them at the North Pole.
Yeah, not in honor of him. That was part of the debt he owed for this sinking the ship. Like, we're taking your ashes.
He actually has to have them spread under the water, under the ice. But they were like, "Well, you couldn't do it, so why would we do it?" That's the story. You know, you kind of do feel for him because he was involved in so many discoveries and stuff, but kind of the thing he's known for the most is just this completely bungled submarine job. Yeah,
but hopefully he can rest in peace knowing that this mental image I have of a submarine with drills and a fucking skate and that kind of stuff. Like, I'm picturing basically DuckTales. Like, yeah, that kind of thing.
So yeah,
I don't know. I am. There's always, like, every day a part of me that's sad that I didn't grow up in a time where, like, being like, maybe if we just got a submarine and put drills on it, like, the being born in the late 1800s was fantastic. It was horrible. We have never done a good story of anybody born in the late 1800s, but we've done a lot of interesting stories from then. And the common theme was that, like, everybody was just like, you could make up whatever the fuck you wanted and be like, we're doing this. This might be real science. And then we spent the next 100 years learning that, no, none of this is real science. But we built off those failures. So, good for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you need the fuck-ups too, you know? Like, the big discoveries and the successful experiments and shit, that's the stuff that gets put in the history books. But there's usually a dozen people who did it wrong before that happened, you know? So,
yeah.
And those are the stories I like to talk about. That's what I relate to.
Except for I really hate thinking of present day, the people currently doing it wrong because they're people that I hate.
Yeah, but just saying, like, you know, we'll be on death's door, you know, wrapping up this show. And we'll have stuff to talk about. Elon Musk was born in, you know.
I love that you knew exactly who I was talking about there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Be like,
yeah, when he inevitably makes a fucking motorcycle that cuts your dick off, you know.
Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson in hospice care.
Yeah.
And this story is about Elon Musk and how he fucked up everything.
This is about a whippersnapper named Elon Musk.
And how we finally got flying cars, but not from him, the stupid motherfucker.
This was long before my grandchildren forgot about me.
So
yeah. That's the story. I'm done with the story.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go start doodling designs on how to build a submarine with like all these gadgets to...
Yeah. And if you want your name etched into some bullshit ice, fund the Non-Essential Submarine.
Well, if there's anything that we've learned over the last couple of years is that there's plenty of like bazillionaires out there that are willing to give you a bunch of money to travel in submarines. And it doesn't even have to be successful. Like,
I mean, there's a video game that I think it's like Star Citizen or some shit, and they have like packages of like it's just fake spaceships. It's just spaceship skins basically, but they charge like hundreds of thousands of dollars for those packs, and like, it's certainly, I'm sure nobody, God, I hope nobody's paying for those. But the fact that they have a storefront where they'll be like, give us $100,000 for, you know, a fake ship. It's like, at that point, I want a real ship. You know, that's at least a down payment.
Well,
you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, in fairness, I don't want a $100,000 starship because that will probably kill me.
I would just have it in my lawn.
That's
just
true.
Brag about it while I'm grilling.
And then when the person that you hate is like coming out and like, so you got a starship, yeah? Well, it's like, yeah, why don't you try it out, Bob? And then you get to watch them explode in the atmosphere. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I let the neighborhood kids fly my starship into the atmosphere. So yeah, that's the show this time. We'll be back with another show another time.
Maybe. I don't know. That's the thrill. That's the thrill of this show now, and in its current iteration is none of us know when the last show will be. Like,
yeah, and I kind of, you know, say what you will about missing a month, but now that you're coming back, I was super excited to do a show this week. Like, I had a topic. I was like, wow, I did real research. And, you know, who knows? Maybe we do this show twice a year.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it. Talk to you all next time. Farewell.
Bye-bye.
We're going to crash.